Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it a coup? Well, it's Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni claiming the threat of a coup happening in South Africa exists. But don't ask for any details. The minister can't be drawn on who or where this apparent threat originates from.
Out of nowhere, she mentions a coup d'etat, saying that it had been flagged, they are monitoring it, and, they managed a situation from happening. And I think we shouldn't be naive as to why the minister said that. It's two things that I'm thinking. I'm thinking it could have been a distraction to distract the public from what is happening, or it was an attempt at hitting at Mkhwanazi for the manner in which he conducted the briefing that Sunday 2 weeks ago.
You'll want to stay tuned for our full discussion with star journalist Amanda Khoza next.
To know when the next episode drops, hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons on our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast channels.
Stay tuned until the show's end to hear your voice notes from the previous edition. And if you'd like to engage us on this episode's topics, please do so. Send us your thoughts and opinions to the official Lead WhatsApp line. That number 072 562 3179. My name's Graham Robenheimer. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. As the Ramaphosa administration grapples with a warring police force, a hollowed-out air force and a scuppered navy, how real or imminent is the threat of a coup d'etat in South Africa in 2025? Well, it's a difficult question to answer given Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni's latest remarks. That's following the release of the National Security Strategy Report for the years in review 2019 to 2024. It does, though, reveal some interesting security, geopolitical and environment factors that may well impact South Africa in future. Our journalist on that story for us is Amanda Khoza. She joins me live now from our Johannesburg studios. Amanda, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. And welcome back to The Lead.
It's nice to be back.
Look, Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, she came out, she said that there was, this apparent threat of a coup that might impact South Africa. But she didn't really give any indication as to where this threat was coming from or where it may emanate from or when it might happen, right? And her remarks were quite startling, I think, for everybody across the board in South Africa today.
That's correct. I mean, just a little bit of background. She calls a media briefing. It's obviously on national security, flanked by the IGI and some of our colleagues from the SSA. And so obviously the nature of the briefing is that they tell us that these are some of the security risks domestically and internationally that are on the security cluster's radar. But how the coup d'etat comments came about is that after giving this briefing about how the SSA had released these reports for the first time in our democracy, there's transparency, then out of nowhere, she mentions a coup d'etat, saying that it had been flagged, they are monitoring it, and basically they sort of had, they managed a situation from happening. And I think we shouldn't be naive as to why the minister said that. It's two things that I'm thinking. I'm thinking it could have been a distraction to distract the public from what is happening, or it was an attempt at hitting at Mkhwanazi for the manner in which he conducted the briefing that Sunday 2 weeks ago. There were people, at the time, who had said to me, man, this doesn't look good. He's flanked by special task force, military garb, officers carrying AK-47s and the language that he's used. And so, the minister's remarks did take us aback because I was just thinking, where? Give us more detail. And then obviously, Ntshavheni, she obviously shoots from the hip and she usually doesn't elaborate. So then she'll hide behind, this is our operation. And that's all she said, basically. So to answer you, she didn't elaborate. She didn't give details. Where was this? Was it in KZN? What gave them, or what was the clue, or what or what did they see as the security cluster that informed that they could characterize that particular situation to be a coup d'etat?
But I thought so interesting in your latest piece, Amanda, which reads the following: coup fears linger, South Africa's new security strategy reveals mounting threats. It's one of our top stories on News 24 today. You quote this crime intelligence source that's been sort of saying an awful lot about what the minister may have been alluding to here. You've already sort of alluded to that particular answer, and that's the picture of Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi flanked by those military garbed high-ranking officials. That's what the minister could be sort of pointing to here, but it's not definite and it's not confirmed, right?
That's correct. I mean, there's a lot that you can read from the Mkhwanazi situation. Some earlier when the briefing happened, some criticized the style of the delivery. And my thought was, they immediately judged the way he was dressed, of which he's qualified to dress like that, the language that was used. However, I mean, for me, it was what Mkhwanazi was saying more over than, the theatrics. And I thought that maybe people were trying to distract us from, these serious allegations that Mkhwanazi was raising about the country's security. And so I think there's mixed views within the police and the security cluster about the manner in which it was done and what was said. And so one of the sources agreed with us told us that they strongly believe that it was a subtle jab aimed at Mkhwanazi. This is because of the language that he used. We are in combat mode. South Africa rally behind me. We are going after the politicians, the MPs.
Yeah, it's a bit populist. It's a bit populist. It is a little bit populist.
You're rallying the entire country. I mean, and so it makes it also very difficult for the government to act on anything that Mkhwanazi, whether he was right or wrong. Basically, he's untouchable at the moment because of the language used and the posture. And so the crime intelligence officer did say, no, they agree. It was almost like threatening. If this doesn't happen, then we are going to do this. The language and when you look at it, the person said to us, no, it was definitely, the language used and the way that he did everything was bordering on a coup,
Sure.
bordering.
But then, not all of your sources, as you've said, Amanda, agree with this particular posture or view, right? Some are sort of saying we dispute that Mkhwanazi could be what the minister has sort of pointed to, right? What are they basically saying? What's that other side of the coin?
There's a very senior officer that I spoke to, and I asked him, like, just genuine, does he believe that this was an attempted coup? And they were like, Amanda, to execute a coup, you actually need to take over parliament, you need to take over the media, you need to take over what are these called? National key points. And while Mkhwanazi did have the platform and the whole nation, watching him, when you look at unconstitutional takeovers of governments in our neighboring countries, in the continent, and how it's executed. About 2 years ago in Sri Lanka, the citizens were obviously unhappy about what was happening. They stormed the presidential house. I mean, you expect, or the normal theatrics of a coup, you take over the government, then you arrest the generals and you get the army in charge. So he in the conventional way, or the way that we've seen coups to take place, he was like, that's not what took place. So he disagrees based on, just how coups ordinarily take place. And that wasn't convincing. And they were also were like, why would the ministers, they were a bit perturbed as why the minister would say that.
Right. And I think a good sort of example to look at would be the Zimbabwean one, right? In regards to Emmerson Mnangagwa's takeover from the Mugabe regime. In that in itself, it happened very much overnight, tanks rolling in through to Harare, and it took quite a few people by surprise, right? Just to speak to your point. It's a very difficult one, right? Because there's a lot of speculation all over the show, and you really want to sort of get something a little bit more concrete at the end of the day. Why do you think your sources would be unhappy with the minister pointing to this alleged threat of a coup? Why do you think that they would go within crime intelligence, within the superstructures of the security cluster in this country today, Amanda? Why would they be unhappy? Because they perhaps may feel undermined, is my question.
I don't know for a fact why they would be upset, but I think in terms of also just communication, what you can say to a nation and what not to say to a nation to cause further alarm. I mean, I think we are all on edge at the moment. I mean, we don't say it, but I mean, at home, at Bryce, with our colleagues, we are talking about how, this serious security threat or security blunder or mismanagement and the I mean, we've heard all of this, but to hear Mkhwanazi say that, I mean, it's gotten us angry and it's gotten us on edge as a country. And so I think they would feel that maybe it's a bit of being undermined. It's also a thing of like, but you didn't discuss that with us, and we didn't have a clear to inform the nation. It's like announcing a state of disaster where everything's going to change the whole nation's lives, basically, and she didn't consult anyone on that. The way she communicated it, you would also think that would come maybe from the army and not from the minister. So I can't tell you exactly why the person was upset, but they did feel that the minister was very reckless. As usual, we've seen that sometimes the minister speaks and then thinks a bit later, or she says things and then, I did send her a message to say, maybe just can you give us more information? Can you clarify?
Yeah.
And obviously that was met with no response. I can't tell you the depth or 100%. This is why they're upset. But the person did express that. I mean, that was a reckless statement.
It definitely carries a lot of weight, Amanda. I mean, it is a massive, bold claim to make, and you would expect there to be quite a lot of evidence to back it up, right? And it being so close to that startling Sunday press conference, which in itself is an unprecedented moment within the history of the SAPS in this country today. The timing and the closeness of everything, I'd agree with you, does invoke a lot more questioning, and the questioning of what is the evidence that the minister is sort of basing on this very shoot from the hip comment, right, as you say. Okay. There is this National Security Agency report, though. It was tabled by the minister. It talks about some of these potential threats for South Africa and surrounds. It talks about hidden foreign agendas. It sort of makes overt comments that doesn't necessarily label the United States, but it does say, hey, we do need to be prepared for any eventuality, right?
It does. So immediately when I read the sentence that spoke about the globally countries are increasingly challenged from outside powers by using misinformation, disinformation, and weaponizing corruption and trying to sow divisions. Immediately when I read that paragraph, for me, it was like, it's the US.
Yeah, white genocide, et cetera.
We saw the peddling of misinformation on Twitter. I don't want to mention names, but there was this aggressive, hostile use of X to peddle lies about a genocide taking place in South Africa, to the extent that our president had to go and meet the US president come on, you're at the White House, and instead of talking trade and relations and perhaps the G20, at the heart of that meeting was how, South Africa, didn't have a in order, basically.
Sure. I love it. I love the off the cuff Amanda. I appreciate it.
And sorry about that.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graham Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072-562-3179.
And so I suppose diplomatically, when things are happening, when tensions are happening between countries, diplomatically, you cannot, although the government or government officials will tell you off the record, Trump is a tradesman, he's a showman, he's a transactional president. We can't use that kind of language. We can't even put in our report that the US is trying to undermine South Africa's G20, or that the US is they've got some we can't use language like that in a report because you don't know how the US will respond. You can't even go as far as obviously stating that it was our case at taking Israel to the ICJ has gotten countries exhibiting hostile, reacting in a hostile manner towards South Africa because we chose to side with the Palestinians. So diplomatically, there are instances, there are examples of outside influence. We saw what happened with the Rwanda issue, with the DRC and our troops being involved in the semi-DRC. We saw that, you just need to be very careful about how you word it. But obviously the government is very worried about the regime change, the geopolitical tensions, the wars, and how they affect us.
Absolutely.
It is a threat to our national security.
Right. And then I thought this was super interesting, and I know you're going to have a lot to say about this, Amanda, is that in regards to the 2019 to 2024 period, which this review focuses on, the ministers pointed to, a lack of crises in South Africa or, public unrest on a scale that we've seen in 2021 in terms of the July unrest, that because we haven't seen more of those instances like the July unrest, that's why now South Africa's intelligence structures are working more effectively, per se. That's sort of what she sort of insinuated, right?
It is, but also I keep going back to, let's question why now. Why did they release the report now? Why is it that you feel the need to tell us all of this? In fact, after the July unrest, every year, the National Security Cluster should have been briefing us on all these matters. Because often South Africa waits for a crisis to happen and then they manage this crisis. So right now, they're not talking about the issue of the foreign nationals in our townships, in our clinics. I mean, that has huge implications. I mean, you've got South Africans chasing away foreign nationals from accessing healthcare. It's like a bubbling under crisis. I mean, and they're not talking. They didn't, make mentions of our everyday lived experience. Yes, there may have been situations that we don't know that they had stopped, maybe from the board, something happening at the borders, but because they are often COVID in operations.
Nature.
Yes, by nature, maybe we don't know. But I mean, I don't think it's not good enough for South Africa to say that, because I mean, look at what Mkhwanazi has revealed. In the background, there's a whole lot of unscrupulous, unlawful. I mean, I cannot wait for that commission. I cannot wait to hear about the syndicates. I cannot wait to hear somebody explain to South Africa why there's a rise in kidnapping. That is a serious, serious security threat to South Africa. Every day, people are kidnapped. All of a sudden, there's this increase of kidnappings. There's an increase of things, illegal substances, things being sold at spaza shops. I grew up in the township. That it was never the case. So what is going on? There are things that obviously they are telling us and they are not telling us, and they're strategic about it. But I don't think it means that it's not necessarily that they are doing their job, but they could do more.
Right.
I don't think South Africa is as secure as they say.
Right. And I mean, as we speak, Amanda, there's anti-migrant marches happening in Durban. As we speak, there's an awful lot of questions as to when this commission of inquiry is finally going to get underway, so that we can start really dealing with one of the biggest growing crises in this country, and that has been the question of good policing, and whether or not we're ever going to achieve that in you and I's lifetime remains such a huge question for us, and I hope that our children down the line will be able to experience and see policemen walking the streets and patrolling the streets and making sure that everything's safe for you and I. What are some of the other main threats to South Africa that has been forecast up until 2028 that this report points to? I thought a lot of them were a little bit vague. They talk about, rapid climate change. We might experience a lot more frequent natural disasters. We may experience more regional unrest. Of course, we've seen a terrorism insurgency across the border in Mozambique up in Cabo Delgado, the northernmost province. We've seen all of those sort of factors. There's nothing really specific. It's all kind of very generic in terms of this report, at least what's been given to the media.
Remember, this is the public version of the report.
Right. So we're not going to know
it's probably going to be like an overview. That's why I'm saying that in everything the minister said, she doesn't talk about our day-to-day lived experience and sort of like our in real time. It doesn't talk real time, if I can put it like that. And so they're very vague about it. I'll take it, for example, they're concerned about political instability. So next year is the elections. So the forecast is that we are expecting, or because the elections are coming up, we're going to see an increase in assassinations. We know when there's councillor elections, there's like a lot of people being assassinated,
100%.
Which is actually at the heart of Mkhwanazi's part of Mkhwanazi's claims is about that political killings task force. They're concerned about municipalities not delivering to communities, which then raises frustrations, and then people go out and protest. They raise issues on the climate change. My understanding was that, any loss of life is a concern, and so they're saying that other than the man-made crises, the continuous flooding and inclement weather does put pressure on the government. Then it does cause of a national security. It becomes a problem or a threat. They flagged diseases. I think in 2020 when the pandemic came, we were caught completely off guard. And so there's issues of dealing with constantly monitoring diseases via borders, ports, checking out what other countries are managing in terms of pandemics. They mentioned the wars and how they're impacting our economy. They mentioned just social instability and how people are on edge about the high levels of unemployment. I mean, those things could lead to instability in that people are tired. People are tired of corruption. Just those are some of the things. But like you said, it's very surface level. It doesn't give you like real time examples. And so you just have to put it together and think maybe deeper as to maybe what are they talking about.
Yeah, and I wish that South Africa had a constitutional allowance that after a certain period of time, like in Britain and the UK, that certain archival papers will be released so that we as journalists will be able to learn from a lot more of these sort of declassified papers, a couple of decades down the line. And as the historian in me, I hope that we get to a point like that in this country, especially during our democratic era. You also spoke to Vincent Magwenya, the spokesperson for President Cyril Ramaphosa, earlier in the week, Amanda, just to end off. And he basically did what the president did not. He fielded further questions about the SAPS Commission of Inquiry, which will be dubbed the Matlanga Inquiry. I thought very interestingly that he basically said something that our colleague Karen Morn, our specialist legal journalist, also said in a previous lead episode with me, is that what else was the president going to do here in terms of Mkhwanazi's allegations? The commission was always going to be the answer here.
That's correct. I mean, is now you're conflicted, I suppose, because it's the police accusing the police, it's the judiciary, it's members of parliament. And so I do believe when they explained that they needed something independent that's going to be chaired by a credible person, and that was going to allow, I mean, you can't have cops investigate cops. You can't have members of SSA investigate SSA and the judiciary investigate itself. And so Vincent explained to us that for the president, it was really the only option to form a judicial inquiry. It's the platform where everybody was going to get a chance to bring evidence before the nation, and then the recommendations would then be implemented, after the reports have come out.
And he also, at the same time, the spokesperson, as I understood it, he also responded to your claims, and there was some allegations doing the round that the president's appointment of Fose Katalia outside of the executive as the new acting police minister was somehow conflated to be sort of unconstitutional or incorrect in terms of what the president was doing. And Vincent came out and he was like, no, this is just nonsense. I mean, it was never the case. This is the president's prerogative. He can get 2 deputy ministers and he can get 2 ministers outside the executive to appoint, right? That's not been in Parliament.
That's correct. I mean, the president's received a lot of criticism after announcing the inquiry. Firstly, people are tired of inquiries. They believe that inquiries don't take us anywhere. Government doesn't act. And so a lot of the politicians or the political parties reacted, some of them saying that it was unconstitutional. He can't do that. However, there is a provision in the Constitution, let me just get it. It's 91(3)(c), which does say the president may select no more than 2 ministers from outside the National Assembly. So that's how they explain to us that he will appoint him, and then he'll be given the powers to obviously take over while this period of 6 months or 12 months that Senzo is on special leave. We know that Gwede Mantashe has been the caretaker for the next 2 weeks until Professor Katalia starts at the end of the month after Wits. So no, they did defend it. They did say, no, he's well within his rights. It's very constitutional. The people that are saying that are misinterpreting the Constitution. Those are the words that he used.
Yeah, and obviously to the lay person just seeing headlines, Amanda, it can get confusing. Hey, Uncle Gweezy is now suddenly acting, Us as journalists, we're like, obviously, this is how we've always understood it, that the president could appoint those so many public representatives outside of those who are voted into Parliament. And I thought that was kind of like a no-brainer, but we often forget as journalists that we're still learning, just like every South African in this country, the intricacies of our Constitution. Amanda, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for bringing you out in the reporting. I love our engagements with you. I love our conversations. It's lekker to speak a little bit more off the cuff with you. And I feel like we've both been channeling a little bit of Nchabeni energy. What do you think to that?
You're in trouble with my boss.
Yeah, hope to chat soon. Thanks so much for your time on the lead.
All right, thanks.
Hello, I'm Bruce Whitfield, and I'm super excited to announce the fact that I'm teaming up with the fabulous people at News 24, and we're going to produce together a podcast called Bruce Whitfield's Business Week. Everything you need to know about the world of business and money and high finance and policy and the things that affect your back pocket every Thursday at 5 o'clock. Bruce Whitfield's Business Week. It's business without any of the boring bits. Subscribe now.
Listen Up is News 24's sharp new podcast, where hosts Tim Cohen and Mark Barnes cut through the clutter with bold takes and unfiltered insight.
They're not fighting for the good of South Africa. And so this has degenerated into a series of tit-for-tat spats. How's that for a bit of poetry early in the morning?
Smart, punchy, and unapologetically real.
President Ramaphosa has explained why he did it, and the reason he did it was because he said that people weren't allowed to go to America, and then Andrew Whitfield did, and then there's a dispute about whether or not he asked.
Catch new episodes of Listen Up every Tuesday on News 24 or wherever you get your podcasts.
I know a lot about this. Not really.
Yeah,
but
there we go.
Here goes.
You could be the accused for a change. Yeah.
Buying a car? Let Driving with J9 steer you right.
The reason why I wanted you in today is because I want to talk about car sales. You were in that space for a few years as a salesman.
News 24's motoring podcast, hosted by Janine van der Post, delivers sharp car advice, expert test drives.
Nowadays, when somebody walks into a dealership, they know sometimes more about the car than the salesperson does because of the access to information.
Yeah. The latest trends and motorsport interviews, all in one smooth ride.
But I mean, these are basic questions that people really need to know. And I think at the end of the day, you just really need to do your homework.
Catch Driving with J9 on News 24 or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's been an action-packed week for The Lead. So many topics to talk about and so little time. Let's have a listen to some of your voice notes in response to our previous edition entitled Latest Twist in Unfolding Police War with Tankiso Maketa. We spoke to him about the latest claims emanating from the now forced to take leave of absence Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sabir, who has since come out and claimed that KwaZulu-Natal's outspoken Provincial Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, is now conducting his own parallel investigation, requesting details of certain case dockets linked to the disbanding of the KwaZulu-Natal-based political killings task team. It's now sort of becoming who said what and cop versus cop, right? Let's have a listen to what some of you had to say. I always appreciate your comments.
Hello, this is Bessington in Pretoria. My opinion on this issue is that it's rather better you bring Bekele into the police, maybe for a year or two, in order to stabilize this situation and bring back normalcy. That would rather be better. Is the man fit to be in this office at this time? Thank you.
Oh, again, police. The South African police, they are, I don't know what to say, but, we should have a big problem. They are infiltrated with corruption, money laundering, anything you can think about. They are even involved with drug smuggling, trafficking, human trafficking, anything. The police are involved in this because the police are not the police anymore. They are not a police anymore. I don't know what they are anymore, but our police system is gone. Since 1994, it's gone. There's nothing they can do now. Serious, it's gone.
Greetings to you, Mr. Graham Rubenheimer. My name is David. I'm from Limpopo. Let me just say this. What a week it was. I mean, the brutality, the war that is going on between police themselves. I'm asking myself questions. What exactly is going on in the police fraternity? What is going on into the police fraternity? The allegations that Mr. Mkhwanazi said about Minister Mihunu. And I'm asking myself question, who is in charge and who is this cat Matala? What is his business with the police department? Surely we as South Africans are worried. Is there going to be a coup d'etat? Are the states going to be taken over? I'm asking myself this question. What is going on? As a citizen, I'm worried. I'm getting goosebumps. There is no way. It's been years and years and years. We are fighting corruption after corruption after corruption, but still, nothing is happening.
From your lips to the rest of our ears. These are topics that we've been covering on The Lead over the last couple of weeks. I'd beg you to go back into our back catalogue, if you will, and have a listen to some of those. If you'd like to engage us on today's topic, you can please do so by sending us your voice notes to 072-562-3179. And hit the follow and subscribe buttons to be notified of our upcoming editions next week on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels. Don't forget to listen out for Bruce Whitfields' Business Week, our brand new podcast offering as part of the News 24 stable of podcasts. Exciting stuff. My name's Graham Rubenheimer, and so long as there's news, we'll always have The Lead.